I spent 6 months in a dark hospital room, recovering from a massive surgery that I hoped would give me a second chance at life. But the real nightmare started the moment I walked through my front door and heard my own voice talking to my wife in our kitchen. My name is Arthur, and I've been blind for 20 years, but I've never been more aware of the world around me than I am right now. While I was away at a rehabilitation center, someone else moved into my house. He's wearing my favorite shirts. He's sleeping in my bed, and he's even convinced my own daughter that he is her father. This isn't a ghost story or a movie. It's a cold, calculated plan to steal everything I've ever worked for. They thought that because I couldn't see, I would be an easy target to erase. They thought they could just swap me out like a broken light bulb. But they forgot one thing. I might not have eyes, but I know the sound of a lie, and I'm going to make sure they never forget the man they tried to bury. The world is a very different place when you can't see it. Most people think it's just black, but it's not. It's a map made of sounds, smells, and the way the air feels against your skin. For 20 years, I lived in a house that I knew better than I knew myself. I knew that the floorboard near the front door had a tiny creak that sounded like a bird chirping. I knew that the kitchen counter had a small dent on the edge where I dropped a heavy pot 5 years ago. I knew that my wife, Elena, always smelled like jasmine and old books. These were the things that made my world real. These were the anchors that kept me grounded in a life lived in the shadows. 6 months ago, I was sent away to a specialized facility. I had a rare chance at a surgery that might have restored a tiny bit of my vision. It didn't work. I spent those months in total isolation, focusing on my recovery, only talking to Elena through short, grainy phone calls. She sounded tired, stressed, and sometimes she sounded like she was miles away. I told myself it was just the distance. I told myself that she was just struggling to manage the house and our daughter, Mia, all by herself. I couldn't wait to get back and be the husband and father they deserved. When a taxi dropped me off in front of my house on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, something felt wrong immediately. The air didn't smell like home. Usually, when it rains, our front porch smells like damp wood and the roses Elena planted. Today, it smelled like fresh paint and something chemical like a new car. I tapped my cane on the pavement, listening to the echoes. The sound was off. It was too sharp, too hollow. I walked up the 3 steps to the porch. I reached for the railing, but my hand hit empty air. The railing was gone. My heart started to beat a little faster. I reached for my keys and slid the metal into the lock. It wouldn't turn. I tried again, thinking maybe my hand was cold from the rain. I jiggled it, pushed it, pulled it. Nothing. The lock had been changed. I stood there, shivering in the damp air, a cold knot forming in my stomach. I knocked on the door. It was a heavy, solid sound. Elena. I called out. Elena, it's me. I'm home. I heard footsteps approaching. They were heavy, confident footsteps. They didn't sound like Elena's light, quick walk. The door opened, and a wave of warm air hit my face. But it didn't smell like our house. It smelled like expensive cologne and sterile cleaning supplies. Can I help you? A man asked. The voice hit me like a physical blow. It was my voice. Not just a similar voice, but the exact same pitch, the same slow way of talking, even the same slight rasp that I have because of my allergies. It was like I was listening to a recording of myself. Who are you? I stammered, my hand gripping my cane, so hard my knuckles hurt. What are you doing in my house? Your house, the man said, and I could hear the confusion in his voice. It sounded so genuine, it almost made me doubt my own mind. Sir, I think you have a wrong address. I've lived here for years. Elena. I screamed, pushing past him into the hallway. Elena. Mia. Where are you? I stumbled into the hallway, but I didn't recognize it. The floor was smooth, too smooth. The carpet that used to be right by the door was gone. I hit a wall where there should have been an open archway. I felt like I was in a nightmare where your own home turns into a maze. Arthur, what's going on? That was Elena's voice. She was coming down the stairs. I turned toward her, my eyes welling with tears I couldn't even see. Elena, thank God. Tell this man to leave. Tell him who I am. I felt her hand on my shoulder. It was cold. It didn't have the warmth I remembered. Sir, Please calm down, she said. Her voice was shaking, but not with joy. It was shaking with fear. You're trespassing. My husband is right here. Arthur, call the police. I froze. I felt the man, the other Arthur, step up beside her. I could hear their breathing. They were standing together, a united front. Elena, it's me. I whispered, my voice breaking. It's Arthur. Remember the night we met at the library? Remember the song we danced to at our wedding? It was At Last by Etta James. You cried because you said you never thought you'd find someone who really heard you. There was a long silence. I could hear Elena's breath hitch. For a second, just a tiny second, I thought I had reached her. But then the man spoke. Everyone knows that story, buddy, he said. It was in a local paper when we did that interview about my business. You've obviously done your homework, but this is getting dangerous. I'm going to ask you one more time to leave before the cops get here. Business? I asked, my head spinning. I'm a piano tuner. I don't have a business interview. I'm an investment consultant, the man said firmly. Look, you're clearly confused. Maybe you're a neighbor, or maybe you're off your meds. Just go, and we won't press charges. I felt a pair of small hands wrap around my leg. Daddy, why is the blind man shouting? It was Mia, my daughter. My heart shattered into a million pieces. She wasn't talking to me. She was looking up at the man who had stolen my life and calling him Daddy. It's okay, Mia, the man said, and I heard him pick her up. I heard the familiar jingle of his watch. My watch, as he patted her back. The man is just lost. Go back upstairs and finish your drawing. I couldn't take it anymore. I lunged toward the sound of his voice, my cane swinging wildly. I wanted to tear him apart. I wanted to find the face that was supposedly mine and rip it off. But he was faster. He moved with the grace of a man who could see exactly where I was going. He grabbed my arm and twisted it behind my back, pinning me against the wall. Listen to me, you pathetic loser, he hissed in my ear. His voice had dropped the Arthur act. It was cold, sharp, and full of malice. You've been replaced. You were a burden. You were a shadow in this house. Now, there's a man here who can actually take care of them. Elena is happy. Mia is happy. If you ever come back here, I will make sure you disappear for real. Do you understand? Before I could answer, the front door burst open. Police. Drop the weapon. I didn't even realize I was still holding my cane. I dropped it, and it clattered on the floor. I felt hands grabbing me, forcing me down to the ground. I tried to tell them. I tried to explain that I was the real Arthur Thorne, that my fingerprints would prove it, that my DNA would prove it. But as they dragged me out to the patrol car, I heard the officer talking to the man on the porch. Sorry about this, Mr. Thorne. We've had a few reports of this guy hanging around the neighborhood. Seems like a real head case. Thanks, officer, the man said. I just want my family to be safe. It's hard enough being blind without people trying to take advantage of you. I sat in the back of the police car, my head against the cold glass. I realized then that this wasn't just a random crime. The man on the porch wasn't just a con artist. He had somehow convinced the world that he was the blind Arthur Thorne. He was playing the part of a disabled man to get sympathy, while I, the man who actually lived in the dark, was being treated like a criminal. At the station, things only got worse. They took my fingerprints, but when they ran them through the system, the name that popped up wasn't Arthur Thorne. It was John Doe. My records had been wiped. My social security number didn't exist. My bank accounts were gone. Every digital trace of my existence had been scrubbed clean. It was like I had never been born. Look, John, the detective said, sitting across from me in a small, cramped room. The people at that house have lived there for 5 years. They have photos, they have bills, they have a kid. You don't even have a wallet. We're going to hold you for observation at the state hospital. You clearly need help. I don't need help, I yelled, slamming my hands on the table. I need my life back. Go to my piano tuning shop on 4th Street. Ask the owner, Mr. Henderson. He knows me. The detective sighed. Mr. Henderson died 3 months ago, John. The shop is a Starbucks now. I went cold. Everything was being erased. Every person who knew the real me was gone or being lied to. I was being moved into a different kind of darkness. A darkness where I didn't even have a name. Before we continue, kindly hit the subscribe button to catch more stories like this. And drop a comment to let me know where you're watching from. I'll love to hear. I was sent to a psychiatric ward. For 2 weeks, I sat in a room that smelled of bleach and old food. They gave me pills that made my head feel like it was filled with cotton. I tried to talk to the doctors, but they just nodded and wrote notes about my delusions of identity. They told me I had created a fantasy life to cope with the trauma of being blind and alone. But I wasn't alone. One night, a nurse came into my room. I knew her by the way she walked. She had a slight limp and her shoes made a soft scuffing sound. She was the only one who didn't treat me like I was invisible. "Arthur," she whispered. I sat up, my heart racing. "You call me Arthur. I know who you are," she said, her voice trembling. "My brother worked at that rehab center where you were staying. He told me about a man who was being kept in a special wing. He said people in suits came to visit you every day, but they weren't doctors. They were lawyers. They were taking your voice recordings. They were taking your biometric data." "What?" I asked. "I'm just a piano tuner. I'm nobody." "You're not nobody," she said. "Your grandfather left you a trust fund that you didn't even know about. Millions of dollars, Arthur. But you had to be alive and competent to keep it. The people behind this, they didn't want to kill you. They wanted to replace you. They wanted someone they could control to manage that money." She slipped something into my hand. It was a small plastic card. "A key. There's a side exit," she said. "The security cameras in the West Hall are being serviced for the next 10 minutes. If you can get to the street, there's a bus station 3 blocks away. Go to the city. Find a man named Silas. He lives under the old bridge. He used to be a private investigator before they erased him, too." "Why are you helping me?" I asked. "Because I did it to my brother, too," she said, her voice breaking. "And nobody believed me. I didn't wait. I moved through that hospital like a ghost. I didn't need eyes to find the walls. I didn't need light to find the door. I was a man born in the dark, and for the first time in my life, that was my greatest strength. I made it to the street, the cold air hitting my face like a blessing. I ran. I tripped. I fell. I scraped my knees, but I didn't stop. I found the bus station and used the few coins the nurse had tucked into my pocket to buy a ticket. When I reached the city, it was a roar of noise. It was terrifying, but I found the bridge. I found the smell of damp concrete and wood smoke. And I found Silas. "I've been waiting for someone like you," Silas said. His voice was like sandpaper, old and tired. "The substitutes. That's what they call them. High-level identity thieves. They don't just steal your credit card. They steal your soul. They pick people who are isolated, people with disabilities, people who won't be missed. Then they move in. I need to get my family back," I said. "I need to show Elena who that man really is." Silas laughed, a bitter, hollow sound. "You think Elena doesn't know? Arthur, look at the facts. Your house was remodeled. Your daughter was coached. Your wife is living a life of luxury she never dreamed of. She didn't just get a new husband. She got a billionaire. You think she wants to go back to the man who couldn't see her?" "No," I whispered. "She loves me. She has to." "Maybe," Silas said, "but fear is stronger than love. And that man, he's not just a con artist. He's a professional. He's been trained to be you. He probably knows your memories better than you do by now." "I don't care," I said, standing up. "I'm going back. I'm going to find a way to make him show his true face." "He doesn't have a true face," Silas warned. "He's a mirror. If you go back there, you're walking into a trap." I didn't listen. I spent the next 3 days planning. I didn't have a weapon, but I had something better. I had the layout of my house. The real layout. I knew that the man who replaced me had remodeled the house to make it easier for him to see. But he hadn't changed everything. He couldn't change the foundation. He couldn't change the secret places I had found over 20 years of living in those rooms. I waited until a Tuesday night, the same night of the week I had returned. I knew their routine. I knew that Elena took Mia to her gymnastics class at 6 p.m. I knew that the other Arthur stayed home to work on his investments. I slipped through the back gate. The lock was new, but the hinges still made that tiny, high-pitched squeak that I remembered. I crawled through the basement window, the one that Elena always forgot to lock because the bush covered it. I was inside. The house was quiet. I could hear the hum of the refrigerator. I could hear the ticking of the clock in the living room. But the air was wrong. It was too cold. I moved through the kitchen. I reached for the counter. My fingers found the edge. The dent was gone. The smooth marble felt like a slap in the face. I kept moving. I reached the stairs. I didn't count the steps. I felt the air. I felt the vibration of the house. I reached the master bedroom. I could hear him. The substitute. He was sitting at the desk, his fingers tapping on a keyboard. He was breathing heavily, his heart rate slightly elevated. He was stressed. I stepped into the room. "Who's there?" he snapped. He turned around, and I heard the chair creak. "The man you forgot to kill," I said. I didn't have a gun. I had a heavy brass candle holder I had grabbed from the hallway. But more than that, I had the darkness. I reached out and slammed the light switch down, even though I knew it wouldn't change anything for me. But for him, it changed everything. "Hey, turn those back on," he yelled. I heard him scrambling in the dark, his hands hitting the desk. "What's the matter, Arthur?" I asked, my voice echoing in the room. "Can't you see? I thought you were the upgraded version. I thought you were the one who could take care of them." "I'll kill you," he screamed. I heard him open a drawer. A gun. I heard the metallic slide of a weapon being readied. But he didn't know where I was. He was a man who lived by his eyes. And in this room, in this darkness, those eyes were useless. I, on the other hand, could hear every move he made. I could hear the fabric of his shirt rubbing against his skin. I could hear the way his breath hitched as he turned his head, trying to find me. "You're over by the bed," he whispered, aiming the gun toward the sound of my voice. I wasn't. I was by the door. I had thrown my shoe onto the bed to trick him. Bang! The gunshot was deafening. I heard the bullet hit the mattress. "Missed," I whispered from the corner. "Shut up. Shut up," he shrieked. He fired again, and again, the bullets hitting the walls, the mirror, the closet. He was panicking. He was falling apart. I moved closer. I could smell his fear now. It was a sour, metallic scent. I was inches away from him. "You don't deserve my name," I said. I swung the brass candle holder with everything I had. It hit him in the side of the head with a sickening thud. He groaned and slumped to the floor, the gun clattering away. I reached down and found the weapon, tucking it into my waistband. I didn't want to use it, but I needed it. I turned the lights back on. I couldn't see him, but I stood over him, my heart racing. I had won. I had taken him down. But then, the bedroom door opened. "Arthur, what was that noise?" It was Elena. She was home early. I turned toward her, my face wet with tears. "Elena, it's me. I've got him. I've got the man who stole my life. Call the police. Tell them the truth." There was a long silence. I waited for her to run to me. I waited for her to hold me. "Arthur," she said. Her voice was flat, cold. "Yes, honey, it's me," I said, stepping toward her. "No," she said. I heard her reach into her purse. I heard the click of a phone. "Security? We have an intruder in the bedroom. He's attacked my husband." "Yes. Send them now." I froze. "Elena, what are you doing?" "It's me. Look at him. Look at his face. He was trying to kill me." "I'm looking at him," she said. And then she said the words that finally killed me. "I'm looking at my husband on the floor, and I'm looking at a monster who needs to be put away forever." I realized then that Silas was right. She didn't want the real me. She had chosen a lie. She had chosen the money, the sight, and the perfect life. She wasn't a victim. She was the architect. I heard the sirens in the distance. I heard the heavy boots of the security team running up the stairs. I didn't run. I sat down on the edge of the bed that was no longer mine. I realized that the darkness I had lived in for 20 years was nothing compared to the darkness in her heart. But as the doors burst open and the lights blinded everyone but me, I leaned down and whispered one last thing to the man on the floor. "You can have a name," I said, "but you'll never have the soul. And every time you close your eyes, you'll see me." I felt the hands on me again. I felt the cold metal of the cuffs. As they led me out, I heard Mia crying in the hallway. "Is Daddy okay?" she asked. "He's fine, baby," Elena said, her voice as sweet as honey. "The bad man is gone now. Everything is going to be perfect. But as I was pushed into the back of the car, I felt the shard of glass I had tucked into my sleeve. I wasn't going back to the hospital. I wasn't going back to the archive. The story isn't over. Because a man who has nothing left to lose is the most dangerous man in the world.